I'm gonna rip you in half now.
Cleanse, purge, kill!
Don't care. Don't care. Still don't care. Don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Greetings and welcome to Shape of Dreams, a MOBA that somehow is actually really fun. Maybe because it's only PvE. Let's get straight into it. Price point. The game is extremely fairly priced at about 24 euros or your regional equivalent. So basically if that thing ever goes on any kind of sale, it's gonna cost almost nothing. And I would argue for the money, upfront, you're getting a very good product. Now, the second most important detail about this game, performance. Does it run well? Yes, it runs very nicely. Didn't have a single issue playing in single player. However, early on, I had a few persistent crashes when hosting a multiplayer game, but only when hosting and never at any other point. So in the name of full transparency, yes, I have crashed a few times on this game, but only when hosting a lobby, and even then it happened very infrequently. And the good thing about this game is it basically saves every time you change stages, so every time you use one of the portals. So you almost never lose anything when you disconnect or when you crash out in the game. And in addition to that, you can restart a run at the latest save point. If you somehow crash or exit out by accident, or you want to take a break, you can always resume at the last save point, which is very generous. Otherwise, the game does get very hectic at times, so you might get a few frame dips here and there, especially if there's more players in your lobby and especially as the host. But all in all, I would argue the game is completely fine. Stability-wise, it runs perfectly, adequately, no complaints there. Now for the menus and options. There's nothing too special here. We got some interesting gameplay settings. During the tutorial, you will be asked to choose between the ARPG MOBA control scheme or a WASD setting. If you made a mistake of accidentally picking something you don't like, you can directly change it in the options menu. Let me just say this. I might have said this is a MOBA as a bit of a joke. It plays more like a top-down action game, something like Diablo, for example. And I personally prefer the WASD control scheme. Me personally, I would urge you to play with WASD and not use the classic MOBA control scheme. Audio settings are expected. You get separate audio sliders, which is good. And you even get some control on how the background audio appears when the game is minimized. Then we go into the graphics settings, and here you have also all of the expected options, including an FPS limiter for the menus, which is kind of neat. And the rest that you see here is pretty standard. Overall, the menus are serviceable for this type of game. You don't really need any overly complicated settings and options. It's always welcome if these are there, but it's not mandatory. And for this game especially, I don't think you need like super in-depth graphic options. It's not very high intensity when it comes to that. Even as an optimization fiend as I can completely look past this. It's all fine and adequate. What else important to say here about this game is it has no DRM and no anti-cheat, and it's also published by NeoWiz, which published Lies of P. So in my eyes, these guys have a pretty good reputation. Now we can go onward to the gameplay, which is obviously the most important part of the game. So how does Shape of Dreams actually play? What are the mechanics? First of all, it supports co-op, which is host-based. So yes, you can get your mates to play with you if you want to. And as I already said, it kind of plays like a MOBA-esque mix or like a top-down action roguelike. And this time around, the roguelike aspect is really emphasized because it can get very strange during certain runs. You basically have a few main characters to choose from. Early on, you have just the starting character, and then you unlock the rest fairly easily and fairly quickly. You don't have to go through extreme levels of achievements to get all of the characters. You will eventually unlock them pretty quickly, and then you can go and experiment with them. First, we got the Scaly, a ranged champion that's basically built all around critical damage and fire. Is the starting character, very easy to play, very powerful. Then we have a Fire Emblem character, a melee fencer, some really nice defense, and some truly satisfying sound design if you would like to listen. And then we got a demon guy thingy. That dude is basically the main glass cannon caster character in the roster. And he can get some really chunky burst damage numbers if you build into some of the skills. He has like a really high skill damage burst potential.
No, don't do it!
And then we have Deus Vult, which is my personal favorite character since this dude swings his hammer around like a pool noodle if you have enough attack speed, and that is quite hilarious, as you might have seen from the intro. He is also, as you would expect, the giant health tank with lots of self-sustain built into his kit, and it is also likely that he is the easiest character to finish a game with as a new player, at least in my experience, and I'm pretty sure this guy is also the dude that has won me the most runs so far, so I can really recommend this dude. He's really good. He's my favorite character out of all of these guys, and look at him, he looks cool. Then we got some sort of forest spirit creature, and she's basically a hybrid support melee character. Very hybrid, even in between like the fact that she scales with damage and skill damage, physical and magic damage, and she's got some really varied builds. We also have a lost child with a giant book. That character, by the way, is notorious for absolutely covering the screen with projectiles and causing performance issues. She's also one of the most busted characters out there because she is extremely easy to play, and her auto attack is literally just auto targeting for you. So her playstyle is extremely chill, and turns out she's also one of the best kits out there. And then we have another type of forest spirit. This time it's the summoner archetype of the game. And playing her is quite nice, since a lot of the aggro will be on your summoned minions. Also, if you get lifesteal on your summons, you have some very, very good self-sustain. And last but not least, we have the samurai doll thingy. Perhaps the most controversial character in the game? This guy is definitely the hardest to play, as he does not get any bonus from attack speed and only gets physical damage as his attack speed. Some consider this guy pretty weak or, very out there. It's a super niche character. I think he's genuinely just a very, very high skill cap character. He's extremely fun to play, although yes, indeed, he is my least played character at the moment, but you can hit some really high numbers with this guy because basically everything you invest into attack speed and attack damage just goes into straight up damage with this guy. Every character has a dodge ability tied to a stamina bar. Some characters have only one stamina bar and some have two, which does kind of influence the difficulty of each character somewhat. Only one dodge is kind of more difficult than having two dodges, but most characters make do with some sort of other addition or bonus if they only have one dodge ability. Every character has a set of base ability sitting in 2 slots. Usually you start with the number 1 and the number 4 slot. These slots can either be like a core ability and an ultimate or 2 core abilities. And obviously each character has like a set of starting abilities. Each character has a certain set of additional skills that they can learn. Not skills that you can pick up in the game, but their own personal character-own skills through achievements. Certain characters even get additional passives besides their basic skills. And yeah, that's basically it. Every character has a very good base set of customizations for playstyle choices from the get-go. And with a little bit of achievements, you will have an even bigger starting set of abilities that you can choose from. But keep in mind, you can only take 2 abilities and a passive into a run. Then we get into the proper roguelike aspect. Throughout a run, you can pick up certain skills that you can slot into your free ability slots. Remember, you always start with 2 abilities, so you have 2 free slots. But, and here's where the fun begins, you can just outright replace all of your abilities. If you don't like your 2 starting abilities, you can slot in anything else. You want to play the Templar as a full-on dark magic Templar that dashes around like an assassin? Well, you can if you want to, And this gives you a huge amount of run customization. But then, in addition to that, each ability, besides your passive and your basic attack, can also slot 3 upgrades. So each of your 4 abilities can also accept 4 different types of upgrades. And these are random gemstones that you find in a run. And they range from basic upgrades that upgrade how your basic attack works, changing your damage type, to completely changing what happens when you press your ability buttons, giving you lifesteal. And they all have rarities up to legendary, and certain legendary items get really, really crazy, such as ricocheting auto attacks, or just outright giving you every single stat in the game, giving you like a bonus for all of your stats. You can freely slot all of these abilities in, and every time you pick up a copy of a little upgrade gem, it automatically gets turned into an upgrade. So you're never going to end up with 2 of the same gems. It automatically upgrades itself percentage-wise. And you can push that percentage up to like 1000% if you want to. You can freely drop these on the ground, and you can move them around. You can move every skill, and you can move every gem within your skill slots around, and kind of mix and match them with your abilities and see what works, what isn't gonna work. The only thing you cannot change or move around is your passive, and obviously your main auto attack, which is usually dictated by your passive. And every skill slot and every slot upgrade can manually be enhanced or, upgraded throughout a run, either through pickups, shrines, or traders. So you can either straight up make your skills better or make the gems better that are in your skills. So there is a crazy amount of customization for each run that is already present. And of course, you can end up with some really shitty stuff too. So, that's the roguelike experience for you. Each run basically works like you would already expect. You move through different changing biomes. choose your path on the map, and kill a boss of the biome at the end. There's always 3 levels, and then an end boss, or if you want to, you can go again and loop through the levels again. Go endless if you want to, until you decide to end the run with the final boss. There's just one caveat. You, sir, are being hunted. And the longer you stay in a single biome, the more nodes on the map will be claimed by hunters. And the more dangerous these claimed territories get. And if you accidentally run into one of these territories, you are faced with meteors that almost one-shot you and very, very strong enemies. It gets worse and worse the longer you stay within a certain biome, so you better move on ahead. And then at the end of each run, again, you choose to go endless, or you choose to confront the final boss and end the run, or die trying, which is what usually happens probably in the beginning. The difficulty feels pretty good. You can always increase it to higher levels. I was mostly playing on the 2nd level difficulty, so pretty much normal. And this is already a pretty good challenge, especially if you decide to go endless. But as with all roguelikes, you can add additional modifiers, up the difficulty, and so on and so forth. These modifiers also unlock through challenges and achievements. So whatever you're doing in a run, after you finish the run, you might have unlocked a different modifier that does something funny, such as enabling PvP, which I don't know why you would do that in a run, but it's funny. In addition, outside of every mission that you run, you level up your character and your account. Your account level is more of a sign of overall progress, but your character level has an effect on the upgrades, the passive upgrades that you can slot in. Each character will level up separately, and at basically level 35 is pretty much where all the upgrades are unlocked. In addition to that, if you reach certain milestones for each character, you can unlock little character borders that you can put on, which look nice. It's kind of a sign of, having progressed in the game, cosmetics. But the only thing you unlock through the gameplay systems are your alternative skills. The character levels are just unlocked by playing and gaining XP. Each character has their own specific upgrade tree as represented here. These are different star constellations because the theme is like dreams and dreamy worlds, and each constellation corresponds to each character. And then there are health upgrades, defense upgrades, and offensive upgrades, economy upgrades, and then finally a flexible slot that can fit any type of upgrade. You can unlock upgrades that are generic and unusable on all characters, so they are universal. And then, of course, each character has their own special upgrades in each of the categories, health, defense, offense, and economy. In addition, the flexible slot specifically can fit specialization upgrades for skills. So that means you can slot certain upgrades for a specific skill or give your character a specific boost to one of their stats. Some of these even have downsides because they give you really powerful buffs. The system here basically works like Warframe's mod system. The right upgrades fitted into the right slot with the right symbol give you the most benefit, but you can also put them in other slots if you want to. In the end, it's not like it's hurting it too much, but there is a drawback if you don't match. And obviously flexible slots can take every type of passive upgrade. These upgrades are earned with a currency that you keep outside of your run. So that is your universal account currency. And you get some bonus currency each time you reach a certain level milestone. 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, and so on. So you end up with a lot of upgrade materials. You pretty much, if you level your characters up, you will have more than enough upgrade materials to get all of the things that you want. So no issue here. There's no grind or anything. It's very, very fair, and you're gonna get your upgrades pretty quickly and fairly. In addition to that, you can also do repeating quests for extra currency. These are not time limited or anything. They basically just infinitely repeat. If you finish one, the next one will pop up. And should you run out of upgrade things to buy, you can indeed find a trader in a run that can sell you silly little cosmetic hats that you can put on your character if you want to, just kind of a funny little, extra bit of flair. And that is the overall gameplay loop in Shape of Dreams. Very enjoyable, and as you can see, there's still a lot of time and levels that I can put into this character. No idea if they will add new biomes or characters in the future. What is already here is pretty good so far. Let's also highlight the music in this game. It's pretty nice. It's been playing in the background so far. There's nothing too special here, but it's serviceable for what the game wants to be. Some of the tracks can get kind of funky though, which is something I like. I like funky music. Story-wise, this game is fairly light. There is some lore present in the game. There's an introductory cutscene. There's obviously a tutorial that's a little bit of lore setup. You can also find relics in runs that contain lore entries. And there's some flair in the loading screens that you can see depending on which character that you play, which is just kind of little lore blurbs telling you a little bit of the character. And then, you know, the ending cutscene after you finish the game seems to set up some sort of DLC or continuation. That's also why I think they have something planned for the future, because the quote-unquote ending of the game sets up something that might be happening. The art style in this game is also pretty well implemented. There are a few biomes that stand out in terms of how they look. For example, the monochrome Japan-inspired setting looks pretty nice. But you get what you expect here. You get a lava area, you get an ice area, you get a spooky underground area, you get a starry night area. I do really like the character designs for obvious reasons. So the game is aesthetically very pleasing, even though, you know, sometimes the screen gets very much filled up with all sorts of effects and carnage and whatever the fuck's going on in some of the runs later on, like in any roguelike game. It gets really crazy towards the end. Now I guess we can quickly talk about the graphics and the fidelity of the game, which in my opinion is always the least important part. And yeah, it's fine. It doesn't need to look like the newest piece of realism slop in my opinion, you know. In fact, I like the simplistic art style here. It's vibrant, there's style to the game, and that's all that counts. It has an art style, it has a good vibe. It also is not running on Unreal Engine 5, thank God. And yeah, that's it. That's it for Shape of Dreams. Give it a try if you would like. I think it's really worth the money and time. And with that, see you next time.